It was a crisp autumn morning when my friend Dave and I decided to go fishing at Lake Whispering Pines. This lake was tucked away in the woods, far from the bustling city. It was known for its large base, and we were eager to make a big catch. We arrived just after sunrise, the mist still clinging to the surface of the water. We set up our gear on a small wooden dock that jutted out into the lake. The setting was serene, almost magical, with the trees reflecting off the still water. A few hours passed without much action. We chatted, drank coffee, and enjoyed the peace and quiet. Suddenly, Dave's line tugged hard, nearly pulling the rod out of his hands. He fought with the line, and it was clear he had something big. I watched, excited, as he struggled to reel in the catch. As he finally got it closer, we could see the outline of a large fish thrashing just below the surface. But then, something strange happened. The water around the fish started to swirl violently, creating a whirlpool effect. Dave's line snapped, and the fish disappeared into the depths. Confused and a bit shaken, we decided to move to another spot along the shore. We found a quiet cove and cast our lines again. This time, it was my turn. I felt a strong pull and started reeling in what felt like a massive fish. As I pulled, the water around my line began to bubble and churn, just like before. Suddenly, a pale hand emerged from the water, grabbing the fish and yanking it down. I screamed and fell backward, dropping my rod. Dave rushed to help me up, and we both stared at the now still water, trying to comprehend what we had just seen. Determined to uncover the mystery, we decided to explore the lake in Dave's small rowboat. We rowed to the center of the lake, where the water was deepest. As we drifted, the boat suddenly rocked violently, as if something massive had hit it from below. We looked over the side and saw a ghostly figure beneath the water. It was a woman, her long hair flowing around her pale face. She looked up at us with hollow eyes, her mouth open in a silent scream. In a panic, we started rowing back to shore as fast as we could. Once on land, we packed up our gear and left, vowing never to return to Lake Whispering Pines. Later, we learned from a local historian that the lake was named after a woman who had drowned there decades ago. Her body was never recovered, and it was said that her spirit haunted the lake, seeking revenge on those who disturbed her rest. I haven't been fishing since that day, and the memory of those ghostly eyes still haunts my dreams. A few years ago, my brother and I planned a fishing trip to a remote river deep in the forest. This place was known for its untouched beauty and abundant fish, but it was also notoriously difficult to access. We were up for the adventure and excited to spend some quality time together. We hiked for hours, following a narrow trail through the dense woods. The path was overgrown and barely visible, but we finally reached the river just before dusk. We set up camp and decided to start fishing the next morning. The first day was perfect. We caught several fish and enjoyed the tranquility of the river. As night fell, we built a fire and settled in for the evening. Around midnight, we heard a rustling noise from the opposite bank. It sounded like something large moving through the underbrush. We grabbed our flashlights and shone them across the river. In the beam of light, we saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at us. They were too high off the ground to belong to any animal we knew lived in the area. The eyes blinked and then disappeared into the darkness. The next day, we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The forest, which had seemed so welcoming, now felt oppressive and eerie. We decided to fish a bit farther downstream, hoping to distract ourselves from the unsettling encounter. As we fished, I noticed the water around my brother starting to ripple. Before I could warn him, something massive broke the surface, knocking him into the river. I rushed to help, but it was as if an invisible force was holding him underwater. Frantically, I grabbed a stick and tried to pull him out. After what felt like an eternity, he surfaced, gasping for air. We scrambled to the shore, soaked and terrified. My brother had deep scratches on his legs, as if something with claws had grabbed him. We decided to pack up and leave immediately. As we hurried back along the trail, we heard footsteps behind us. They were slow and deliberate, matching our pace. We didn't dare look back, instead quickening our steps until we reached the car. We never spoke about that trip again, but sometimes, late at night, I think about those glowing eyes and wonder what kind of creature we encountered in that remote forest. The last story happened when I was vacationing with my family in a coastal town. We rented a small beach house for the week, and my dad and I planned a deep-sea fishing trip. We hired a local captain named Jim, who promised us a great day of fishing. We set out early in the morning, the sun just beginning to rise. The ocean was calm, and the weather was perfect. After a few hours of fishing, we had already caught several impressive fish. Jim suggested we try a spot farther out, where he claimed the biggest fish could be found. As we sailed farther from shore, the atmosphere changed. The sky darkened, and the waves grew choppier. Jim seemed uneasy, but insisted we continue. We reached the spot, and I cast my line, eager for another big catch. Minutes later, I felt a strong tug on my line. I started reeling in, but whatever was on the other end was incredibly powerful. It pulled with such force that I nearly lost my grip. Jim came over to help, and together we struggled to bring it in. As we finally got it close to the surface, we saw something that made our blood run cold. It wasn't a fish, but a large, humanoid figure with pale, clammy skin and long, thin fingers. Its eyes were black and soulless, and it stared at us with an expression of malevolent hunger. Panicked, Jim cut the line, and the creature disappeared into the depths with a haunting wail. We stood there, stunned, trying to process what we had just seen. Jim quickly started the boat, and we sped back to shore. Back at the dock, Jim pulled me aside and told me a story. He said that decades ago, a fishing boat had gone missing in that area. The bodies of the crew were never found, but local legends spoke of sea creatures that dragged sailors to their doom. He believed we had encountered one of those creatures. I was shaken and vowed never to go deep-sea fishing again. The ocean, which had once seemed so inviting, now felt like a dark, foreboding place hiding ancient horrors. Even now, I sometimes dream of those black, soulless eyes staring at me from the depths, and I wonder what else is out there, lurking beneath the waves, waiting for its next victim.